Friends, pray with me. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations in all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight. Amen. So we've now lit the candle of joy. And we might be eager to rush headlong now into the joyful Christmas season. Is it time yet for the big, bold Christmas songs? You know, "Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant," right? Joy to the world. Angels are spreaders of joy. They tell Zechariah and Elizabeth, "You will have joy and gladness." And in today's reading, Elizabeth and Mary share their great elation at their pregnancies. They share a tender moment that perhaps only the two of them can fully understand. So yes, it's the Sunday where we light the candle of joy, but I got to pump the brakes just a minute, because we're not there yet. You know, every Christmas story, biblical or secular, there's always a tension. There's a villain who must be confronted, who still hasn't seen the light and must be persuaded. It's the Grinch who stole Christmas from Whoville. Or Mr. Potter's greed nearly drives George Bailey to suicide. Even Rudolph had his tormentor, Comet. And the abominable snowman is lingering in the background of the story. Indeed, when we read the biblical story, it reads like a Dickens tale. Caesar Augustus and Ebenezer Scrooge are both partners in greed. The stable and manger are similar to the Cratchit's kitchen, sparsely equipped yet overflowing with family love. The biblical angels and Dickens' ghosts of Christmas are at least cousins, messengers who come in the darkness and tell us, "Turn around, there's still time for joy." So the joy in the Christmas story isn't a celebration of our success that we try to show maybe with expensive gifts. It's not because we have perfect togetherness in our ideal families. It's not even the greatness of our country. No, joy is announced into hardship. Joy is announced when some are feeling hopeless. It doesn't come after the distress is eliminated. It comes before. The angel doesn't say, once everything settles down, or once Herod is gone, or the census is over, well, then the joy will come. No, it's announced right in the face of Grinch and Potter and Scrooge and Herod. It bubbles up from the bottom, from hardship, from Happy Who's and Cratchits and Baileys and elves. The theologian Henry Nouwen put it this way: happiness depends on circumstance. Joy runs deeper. Joy is the experience of knowing that you are unconditionally loved, and nothing, not sickness, failure, emotional distress, oppression, war, even death, cannot take that love away. Mary's joy was complicated and vulnerable, but her effervescent song still overflows with a wellspring that's much deeper than what's at the surface of her life. Our story this morning begins after the angel Gabriel has come to tell Mary that she will give birth to a Messiah. Now, if it was your first pregnancy and this is how it was going down, who would you tell first? You'd think she'd go talk to her mother, but no. Or maybe she'd tell somebody from her fiancé's family, Joseph, but no. She's going to go talk to Elizabeth. And remember, Elizabeth lives down near Jerusalem, so it says she makes haste, but this haste, it's going to take a whole week for her to walk down there and see Elizabeth. And of course, the angel had said to Mary, Elizabeth is also pregnant and she's going to give birth. You're kind of partners in this story. And so she thinks, this is somebody who might understand what I'm going through. This is someone who could help explain this to me. So they've both heard the call. They're both going to be a part of God's work, and Mary's getting some support and counsel from a wise elder. I mean, if angels delivered such shocking news to you, wouldn't you want to check it out with somebody? Make sure you're not crazy? I mean, God sometimes asks a lot. Build an ark. Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. You're going to give birth to a Messiah. You know, that's a lot of knowledge and responsibility for one person to carry alone. And I find that most biblical characters, they want a second opinion after a divine visitation. I mean, we can imagine Mary today, she's probably would still be in high school, and they'd probably send her to the guidance counselor. She might have to take, the MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It helps diagnose mental health disorders like schizophrenia, could explain why you're having strange visions. One of the 567 true-false questions of the MMPI is, God sometimes speaks to me. I took this test with my entering class in seminary, and when I came to that question, I laughed out loud. How do I answer it? If I say yes, do I get a diagnosis? So 2 minutes later, someone else laughed. And then a few more. And one bewildered person turned around and went, shh. And 2 minutes later, they laughed and pandemonium broke out. And the test supervisor is looking at us like, what madhouse have I stumbled into? And we explain, well, we're all going to seminary, so we all have, at some level, think God has called us. And I think that bothered her even more than the laughing. So Mary doesn't go to her mother or her fiancé. She's going to Elizabeth. And during that whole week that she's traveling, she's probably wondering how Elizabeth is going to react to this news. Will she be received or judged? And it says when Mary walks in the door, she hasn't said a word. And it says Elizabeth, that she's like about 6 months or so along, and it says the baby in her womb who would become John the Baptist, the baby leaps for joy. That'll get your attention. And she, call it intuition, revelation, divine insight. She knows. She knows. And she turns to this young woman and she says to her, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." What a greeting. Good morning to you too, Elizabeth. But she understands. And there's then this excitement of these two women. They're both pregnant, and there's this experience, this multi-layered miracle of body and divine spirit, and they have a pact. They're in this together. And unfortunately, this scene isn't always in our Christmas pageants. And I wish it was. It probably should be, because it would tell young women that there are wise elders who will guide them through the challenges of life, through complicated family situations. And I'm struck by how much Luke's gospel brings women's experience front and center. Joseph doesn't speak in Luke's gospel, which is interesting, because if you read Matthew, it's all about Joseph. Joseph has all the dreams and the visitations of angels, and Mary ponders things quietly in her heart over in the corner. But not in Luke. In Luke, Mary has agency. She's central to the story. And if you read the Magnificat, wow, she's on it. I wonder if Luke, being a physician, maybe was a little bit more comfortable with women, maybe understood a little more, maybe had assisted in births or various things that could happen. And so as we take a look now at how Mary's going to respond with joy, we look at the Magnificat. It's a bold joy. She has great plans for her son. What do you hope for? For your children, grandchildren, or nieces and nephews, the children in your family? What if you had to write a song about it? What would you say? What if the song embodied sort of our cultural norms and values more than the way the gospel speaks to us? If Mary was a different kind of person, a helicopter parent who is pushing her kids to strive and achieve, and maybe was into the prosperity gospel, maybe the Magnificat would have sounded like this. My soul magnifies the Lord, for surely my son will go to the Ivy League. My heart rejoices in the future that I imagine for my child, for God knows his great potential for success. And he will aspire and dwell in the grandest estate, and his home will be a palace of luxury, proof that God has smiled upon him. May his name be synonymous with wealth and favor, his resume impressive, his riches counted in many zeros. Heed the call of the luxury car, my child. May valet parking be your birthright. May inconvenience be far from your life, for the Lord helps those who help themselves and rewards those who plan well. Blessed are the successful, and may his success be known for generations to come. But that's not Mary. She magnifies a God who rejoices in justice and celebrates a world being made whole. God has shown the strength of his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imaginations of their hearts. She has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. She has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. The Magnificat echoes throughout Jesus' ministry. If you remember his first sermon back in Nazareth in Luke 4, he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to proclaim good news to the poor and freedom to the captive." Sounds like the Magnificat, doesn't it? Or when he says it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven. Jesus saw with different eyes. He notices the poor widow giving her last 2 copper coins in the offering. He hears blind Bartimaeus crying out for mercy. He shows mercy to the woman caught in adultery. Is this perspective from Mary? I like to think she did more than nursed the baby Jesus, changed his diapers. She was his first teacher. She must have taught him the values of the Magnificat. And wasn't God working through her not just in birth, but Jesus' whole life? She was his mother. Maybe God chose someone like Mary because she wasn't docile. That she would be someone who would teach her son, Jesus, not to go along to get along, not to curry favor with the rich and the powerful, but she has agency. So do you know who really gets the Magnificat? The powerful and those who want to control. Do you know the Magnificat has been banned several times in history? During British colonial rule in India, the East India Company prohibited the recitation of the Magnificat during evensong in Advent in Anglican churches. You want to be talking about throwing off the powerful, because that's them, right? On the final day of British rule in India, they brought down all the flags at the same time all across the country, and Gandhi asked that the Magnificat be read at every place as power changed hands. This third Sunday of Advent, we're called to be present with joy. Mary's story celebrates the joys that are both large and small. There is the tender joy of new life, of birth, of a baby's leap in the womb, a wise elder to guide her, a safe haven. But there's also the joy that a new world is coming. It can be better than it is right now. There is a joy that comes when all are fed, when all are made whole, when all are welcome. And Mary carried that joy, pregnant on a donkey, birth in a manger, flight to Egypt and beyond. And this is our joy to carry too. If we are present and we notice and we pay attention, we'll see that joy, because it's right here and it's right now. Amen.